Adding her voice to the Guyana elections debacle and the recent announcement by the U.S. of visa restrictions on some government officials who the U.S. claims are undermining democracy in Guyana is United States Congresswoman Yvette Clarke. Clarke, while speaking on a live television interview, has highlighted again that Guyana is sovereign and that GCOM has the responsibility to conduct free, fair, and transparent elections.
What I have consistently said is that Guyana, as a sovereign nation, has the responsibility to conduct free and fair elections, and that every process under its constitution must be adhered to in order for the democratic process to reach its logical conclusion. It's my understanding that process is not concluded.
There have been mounting calls for President Granger to concede, even though there has been no declaration by GCOM, an infringement as put by Congresswoman Clarke.
For any entity outside of the Guyanese people themselves to weigh in with their opinion of what is taking place is an infringement on the sovereignty and the democratic process of the nation.
The recent announcement by the Donald Trump administration on visa restrictions and for the Granger government to step aside could only be deemed questionable, according to Congresswoman Clarke.
With the Trump administration, their motives can always be questionable because they have expressed and they have demonstrated to the American people their corrupt intent in other parts of the world. So for those who would try to use them as a legitimate arbiter of what is taking place, I would tell anyone who does that they're doing that at the peril of essentially digressing in terms of their own credibility. When we look at what is taking place in Guyana right now, I've said to people, what if Guyana were in the position that the U.S. is in?
The Congresswoman questioned, what if the situation had been reversed? Would the United States have allowed Guyana to intervene?
When we had the Supreme Court looking at the election of Al Gore and George Bush, when we have wanted Guyana to be putting out proclamations of sanctions on the United States because we were going through a process that had to review an election that took place in the United States. For those who are familiar with Gore v. Bush, it was over Florida and a disruption of the elections due to the type of election materials that were utilized. And of course, the scrutiny that had to accompany that in order to come to some reconciliation. In the same way, Guyana is going through a democratic process to reconcile the voting dynamic within that nation. And I don't believe anyone can reconcile that outside of the Guyanese people.
Travis Chase, HGP Nightly News.